This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4.
Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. Go check that out. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube under Daniel G. Garza, or at Little Mexican, LILMESICAN. So go check those out. You can find things about my guests, news shows, what's coming up, random pictures, and I have a lot of videos that you guys have not seen. These are like maybe post or pre-videos that don't go on the regular podcast that you'll only get on the Facebook page or on YouTube. So go check that out. And remember, to get in touch with any of our guests, scroll down on YouTube and all the links will be there. So go check that out. Today, I'm excited because I've actually wanted to have him on my show for a while, and I finally got him because he's a very busy man now. Mr. Masa Fox, ¿cómo estás? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah. You seem a little nervous.
Yeah, I am a little bit.
This isn't your first interview, though, is it?
It's not my first interview.
No, okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I didn't catch you virgin anymore.
No, not at all.
But Masa and I met at Cal Arts, Cal Arts, up in
Valencia, Santa Clarita.
And I was cast on a project through Mr.
Mike Nason. For a Pancho Villa role. I play Pancho Villa. So for those of you that have not seen it, I will post it on my page so you guys can watch it. It's really good. It's amazing.
I never really knew that alligators and gorillas existed in rural Mexico. But in Michael's version of Pancho Villa, I did. So the project for everybody, I know some of you want to Google it right away. It's called La Luz y la Sombra. It's a story of the revolution, and there's death, and there's witchcraft, and
all sorts of different graphics and playfulness, absurdity, and all different kinds of acting. Yeah.
If you've ever done a thesis for art school and you try to incorporate everything that you've learned, you'll relate to this project. But in actuality, it was pretty good.
It was amazing,
right?
I think for Cal Arts people, it was. To me, it was a breath of fresh air. It was absurd. It was Mike Nason at his best. He was incorporating all these different sceneries that he would come up with, these absurd kind of graphics that he would put in, coupled with this sort of traditional story, but not done in a traditional way at all. And over-the-top acting and different actors with different abilities coming together and putting on a skit.
Now you played the.
I did not actually play.
You were production.
I believe it or not, and confirm this with Mike Nason. I think I was supposed to have the Pancho Villa part.
Really?
But I didn't feel comfortable at all. I mean, a lot of people do think that I'm some people, excuse me, think that I'm Chicano, but I'm not. I don't speak, Spanish, so I didn't feel comfortable doing it. So he went ahead. I think he did an audition with you.
Yeah.
And you were hands down his first pick, and that's how.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, oddly enough, and I want to get Michael. So, Michael, if you hear this or watch this, when are you coming on my show? I went in to to audition, and I was early because I'm always early, and I guess the person before me didn't show up, so they're like, I was going to go to the bathroom and prep and get ready. They're like, no, come on in. And I'm like, oh man, like I wasn't like into Pancho Villa yet. And they're like, I did the lines. Oh, and I wore a Pancho Villa t-shirt to the audition, which I still have, which he signed on my last day when I wrapped the last day.
Awesome.
So I show up, we do the lines, and he's like, that's great, because I threw in a little accent, and it was perfect. And he goes, well, we only have one question. Can you try on the jacket? So it was a very Cinderella moment.
Interesting.
So I tried on this jacket, and it fit. So he's like, oh, like da-da-da. Yeah, like
the shoe fits.
Mexican angels sang in mariachi behind me.
Right.
And then there was a hat. It's like, well, try on the hat.
Right.
And the hat fit.
Great.
And I thought that's how I got it, because I didn't think I was good. But
I thought you were amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I thought you really, I commanded the part. I really felt like you had a presence. A lot of people your co-stars, some of whom were doing sort of favors to Mike Nason because he couldn't find people. Were first-time actors. Very clear that you obviously had all this experience and you really owned the part. And I was on the filmmaking side, so I was running the cameras and all that, and you could tell from the way you acted and that you were the star of the show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So now I really have to post that. Now I'm going to turn this interview from something dogging you to I have to be serious now.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm really curious to hear about I know some of your story from following you and from our conversations, but Masa Fox, tell us how you put it together.
So, my mother's Japanese and my father's a white American from Texas. And I go way back to where I was born and how I grew up, mainly because I think my long journey really started there. And I was born and raised in Japan. I grew up more or less as an ordinary Japanese kid, but obviously from the way I look, I'm not. I wasn't considered Japanese. And, many of my childhood friends thought that I was, just white. I was not, mixed race in the way that I'm known right now in California. So the journey started there. Like I said, I grew up as a Japanese kid, but I always felt, different, somewhat excluded because of the way I looked. And long story short, I just... my father was a professor. We moved around because of his job. He had various, opportunities in the United States and Canada. So I actually had this sort of very unique upbringing of growing up not just in Japan, but in Vancouver, British Columbia, for instance. So very early on, I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I went to high school in New Hampshire at a prep school there.
Oh, wow.
And I went to college in Western Mass, but, I did a year in England, and before I went to college, I was, in New Zealand traveling, and Korea, and so I had all these different sort of experiences traveling and living overseas. Amidst all of that, I, really was kind of trying to find myself. I knew growing up that I wasn't an ordinary Japanese person, and that feeling sort of gave way to my feeling more that I was American. But then going to the U.S. to prep school and seeing how everybody acted, I think I realized then I'm not really American either. And so, I was this sort of hybrid of being Japanese and American. And, I was bilingual, so that had a very big part in my identity formation. All the while feeling like I was either lost or that I was very unique. And I had this tremendous experience in high school, going to international school, where I met like-minded people who were mixed race, people who were bilingual, people who were trilingual, people who were bicultural, tricultural. Interacting with these people really felt like I was at home. But of course, school is school, and you don't stay in school forever.
Right.
So I never had a community, so to speak, a community that was fixed, that I could always go back to. Every time I went back to Japan, people would go to college, or people would graduate from college. They would get jobs, they would move, they would have a family. Nothing really was stable, and I kind of, all my life, I think I've been longing for a community that I could really call home. Home to me is a very complicated issue.
Well, I can imagine. So all the moving around.
Yeah.
From what age to what age again?
Well, so I was born. If you want the whole rundown, I could give it. It'll take you a while, or it'll take me a while. Excuse me. But I was born in Tokyo, for instance, and I was there for only 6 months, and then because my dad was still a graduate student at the University of Michigan, we moved back to Ann Arbor, Michigan, for him to complete his studies. So we were there for 2.5 years, went back to Japan, went to kindergarten there, went to elementary school there, but then in 6th grade we moved to Canada, to British Columbia, because my dad, his university had sent him there for this exchange program. And so I spent 2 years in Vancouver at a normal Canadian public school.
Okay, hold on a second. So we were talking Tokyo,
Yeah.
Ann Arbor,
Yeah, Ann Arbor.
and then
Back to Osaka for a bit, and then to Kyoto, Japan. That's really my home when people ask where you're from. But I was only in Kyoto, at least at that moment, until I was in the 6th grade.
Okay, and then from there, Canada.
Canada.
We're in Canada.
Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay, and then.
And then 2 years there, and then I went back to Kyoto
Okay.
for another 2 years.
Okay.
And then I went to prep school in New Hampshire, in a place called Exeter, New Hampshire. And I was there for nearly 2 years.
Okay.
And then I went back to Kyoto again.
Of course.
to finish up high school, and then I was there for 2 years. I had a year between high school and college, and then I went to Western Massachusetts.
Wow.
And that's where I spent my college years.
So when did you end up here?
I ended up here. I can continue after.
Oh, okay. There's more after that?
Okay, so that was 4 years of college, but the third year, actually the whole year was spent in England because
Okay, of course.
I did a study abroad. So
Don't we all?
Yeah, we did, right?
Of course, because you haven't been out of the States long enough.
Exactly. So I spent a year in the UK, and then went back for my final year, graduated, went back to Japan for a little bit again, and then to New York for 2 years. And I worked that was my really first honest-to-God job. I worked in TV. I actually worked at Nickelodeon. Cutting trailers and producing trailers for Nickelodeon. So I did that for almost 2 years, and then it was a mixed blessing at the time, but I got laid off from Nickelodeon, so I used my severance pay to go move to Hawaii, and this is where I thought my home was. This question of home was very elusive at the time. I had been to Hawaii before. I fell in love with Hawaii. So many mixed race people, so many different cultures. Whites were in the minority. It felt like some place that I truly belonged. That only lasted for about 15 months. I had a lot of financial issues, so eventually, and some emotional issues as well. And so I went back to Japan and this is for the final time, basically, that I really lived there. I went back because of this project that I've been posting about on Facebook.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
For a film, and so I stayed there for 2.5 years, and then finally decided that the right move for me was to go to graduate school for film, and CalArts was on the radar because one of my mentors from college was was friends with people who were teaching at the college at CalArts, and really highly recommended me applying, and I took her advice, and so I thought, CalArts is the place, and it was. It took some time to sort of get used to because, Valencia's this suburban place where it's like there's really not much there.
There's nothing in Valencia. There's one.
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's one strip. Where everything is.
Yeah, exactly.
From coffee to clothes.
Yeah.
Anything you want is there, and then that's it.
And that's it. It's a whole bunch of like strip malls and malls. Very nice houses. Well-to-do people living there, but you can talk about. I mean, this you're counting how many times.
Okay, so you're how old now?
I am 36 years old.
Really?
Yeah. I seem probably younger.
You do seem younger.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I joke that it's my mom's Asian genes. Yeah.
Anything brown lasts a long time.
Yeah.
Amen, brother. I got it. Because it doesn't come from the white side.
Yeah. Right.
So you're lucky, yes. Because I'm 47.
Okay.
So.
Well, you look young as well. I thought actually you were my age.
I am.
So.
In Hollywood.
Yeah.
In Hollywood, yes, I am, sir. Yeah. And since we're really close, I'm in between both.
All right.
But in 30 what? 6?
6, yeah.
In 36 years, you basically moved 15 times.
Yeah. I've moved a lot, yeah.
Dang if you don't have, like, root issues.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and not to mention that, I think it goes, it's not just the moving, it's my personality. I think I tend to sort of think and dwell and contemplate a lot, and so when I'm overstimulated, my life has been one giant overstimulation. Like I tend to really, take my time sorting through all these different thoughts and feelings that I have. Having said that, though, I arrived in Southern California in 2012. Something truly. I mean, LA is an incredible place. Right now, I'm mired in the fact that it's expensive and it's gigantic, and you kind of get lost. But really, when I first arrived, I didn't know what to expect, and the fact that it's not just a diverse place, but just a really vast, extensive place with this incredible landscape.
What does this do? Let me talk a little bit about because you have a presence. Because I mean, definitely of all the people that I've worked with at CalArts, and I've done a couple of projects up there. This was the biggest by all means, but you have a presence. There is this in the middle of the hectic. You stand there, and I was like, and it's like, okay, everything's cool. Masa's here. We got this. And I can only say for me, because as an actor, I look for something that's constant. Like no matter where my brain goes, if I look, and I love Michael, but he gets a little out of his head. And you're like, Michael, back over here. But you, and I can't remember everybody's name, but it was one of the camera girls in a couple of the episodes. Right. She was so calm. So I would look over and be like, everything cool? Like, you good? Was that good? Okay, good. How do you find yourself, especially coming to LA at the end? After all your trek, now you're in LA, which is hectic. Everybody has an agenda. Even people who don't have an agenda are under an agenda. You know what I mean? Right. How do you manage your personality in such a hectic space?
That's a really tough question because I thought I was managing okay, and until recently, and I feel that I'm still kind of a mess inside. But in terms of how I managed before, I think for me, the energy around me, I kind of feed off of that. Certainly at CalArts, there's a lot of creative minds there, and different personalities. What was really, truly fruitful to me was listening and processing other people's thoughts, and sort of giving back things that I thought I could give back to these people. I wouldn't give back everything. I would share things that I thought people would appreciate. But I think I have, without sounding too cocky, I think I have the ability to understand and communicate not just my feelings, but to sort of share ideas of other people's ideas. Throw things back at them. Right. I think I have the ability to sort of bring this sort of to make this sort of bond with people, and I think I use that to my advantage. Certainly in school, I was friends with a lot of people. I enjoyed socializing with a lot of people. Certainly, a film school and a film set is really all about communication.
Yeah.
And I just fed off of that energy. And I think when I had access to that, to the school, to the campus, to the film, to the film productions, I was really in my own element. And I think people felt that way. And so I would get excited about other people's projects. I would get excited about people's ideas. And I think people fed off of my energy as well. Yeah. Having been in the real world, and when you're having to, sort of do the, I'm in post-production, and, I have to work long hours, and, you're on somebody else's agenda, and because you mentioned that, and it's very clear, businesses and companies that I have worked for, it's the agenda is very clear. At the end of the day, you have to get the business, you have to make the money. I have gotten bogged down with that, and I think when I can't feed off of positive energy, when I have to sort of do the grind, I think that's when I'm actually my worst.
Well, I would think that maybe, and hold on a second.
Yeah.
I would think that growing up in having such a hectic life. Because I can relate to that. I moved not 15 times, but I moved quite a little bit when I was younger.
Right.
And I was very independent. I thrive better when I'm pushed into doing a project on my own. Like, here's the guidelines. Right. Here's the deadline.
Right.
Go.
Right. And
right at the 11th hour is when all the ideas pop out.
Right. Right.
Do you find that you are at your calmest when everything around you is hectic?
I think I'm not at my calmest, but I do think that there's some sort of, if there's a frenzy around me, and the energy, perhaps it's sometimes it's very negative, but there's energy and there's a sort of a camaraderie and a collaborative atmosphere. That's when I think I'm the most creative.
Okay.
In terms of my calmest, in terms of like being reflecting and thinking through thoughts completely. No, I'm not like that. I think I'm the calmest when I go to the ocean, for instance, or in this case of this film that I recently did, going down to these islands, just soaking in the beauty of the landscape. One of my favorite things to do is to go up this highway. You may know of this highway, the 395. On the eastern side of California, going all the way up to Mammoth Lakes, those areas. There's a stretch in there. It's actually the 14 and the 395. There's a stretch in there that's just kind of nothingness. There's a lot of desert, mountains, just incredibly vast open landscape. When I'm there, driving through, and I'm like, seeing that landscape, I feel really at peace. There's a sense of there's a melancholy, there's a sadness, but there's also this sense that of wonder. It's not all rational. I can't necessarily describe every piece of it, but it makes me feel really calm. So that's when I'm really just kind of feeling nostalgic and reflective. And to me, that's when I'm able to collect my thoughts the best. In the frenzied sort of work environment, I'm creative, but in a different way. I can sort of, spit back ideas and process, hard to process things, but it's not as though I'm like reaching into my soul.
All right. What's the most spontaneous thing as an adult that you've ever done?
What's the most spontaneous thing that I've done? As an adult, so it could be many years ago. It has to be. It has to be my time. It has to be my time. I mean, it's a big life thing, so it's nothing small. But it has to be working in New York, feeling the grind, and everybody. All my college friends were there. My brother. I was living with my brother. My best friend from college was there. Just kind of living the typical New York lifestyle, and then getting laid off, and deciding within 2 weeks of my getting laid off that I would just move to Hawaii.
Wow.
to go to the islands, to go to Hawaii, and just be like, you know what? I'm going to do it, because I've always wanted to go live there. I had a chance right after college. I really enjoyed it. I never lived in Honolulu, so I wanted to give that a shot. And it was just this kind of dream place. And so I just booked a ticket and, packed up my stuff and contacted a friend and said, hey, I'm coming over. Can I stay?
Yeah, because that's not like going to U-Haul and ready to pick up.
Yeah.
And just loading up. That's from New York to Hawaii. Yeah. That's quite a move.
Polar opposites, yeah. And, ever thought it was crazy. I think those who knew me well, I think understood why I was, at some point I understood why I was doing it. But I think for the most part, it's like, what? People would be like, yeah, who wouldn't want to move to Hawaii? But I'm like, I'm really doing it. I'm actually going to go live there and work there. It's not just some vacation. So I think that has to be one of the most spontaneous things that I've done.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Where does the artistic side of you start coming up? Yeah.
I think I was actually talking to a friend just recently about this, and it wasn't specifically about where these artistic ideas come from, but it was really about how I grew up. And I think I'm very talkative now. I can hold a conversation. I can assert myself. But as a kid, I didn't have those tools. I was a very quiet kid. In fact, I meet up with some of my old childhood friends from elementary school, and really I would get these comments about my reticence, about how I was so holed up inside me, and how I'd never really talked to I have a twin brother.
Oh, okay. An
identical twin brother.
Wow.
And he was similar when we were growing up, but he was the more talkative one. He was the leader of the two. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier.
No, that's cool. Yeah. I'm just imagining two Masas walking around.
Dan, I think you should meet him and I'll definitely introduce because he's very different. We are identical, but we look different and we talk very differently. So. I think you should definitely not necessarily have him on your show or anything, but just definitely get to know him.
Well, now I'm curious. Yeah. Now I want him on my show.
Yeah.
So may I ask his name?
His name is Boone, Boon, and but he was, I think, more of a leader between. So I kind of followed it as a kid, and imagine a twin who is the quiet one, who's not necessarily very confident. I was like following him for a lot of my childhood. And I think where my creativity came from, I think initially started with me being so introverted, lost in my thoughts. I think a lot of it I didn't share because I didn't know how to share my thoughts, and I also really didn't think that anybody would really listen.
Did you allow him to be your voice for a long time?
Yeah, absolutely. He was my mouthpiece for, I think, growing up. And I think, for me, it sort of became automatic. And so oftentimes we are identical twins. We share a lot of the same thoughts. And I think, I was comfortable with that. But I think at a certain point I realized, I do have my own thoughts. That's different.
How old were you when that happened?
I think I must have been in close to high school when I mentioned that I went to prep school. I had left prep school really against the will of my brother, my family, mainly because this was a very prestigious school. I was, just by being enrolled in there, I had a better shot at a college of my choice, of my choosing, and I think people thought it was the wrong career move. That's when I think I came into my own. I think I really sort of broke out of this shell that I had. I started, doing theater. I started acting actually, and I was involved in some filmmaking as well. But I started getting into poetry and started writing poetry.
How dare you, you rebel! How dare you write poetry?
Yeah. So I think that's when I started. I mean, it wasn't like a flip of a switch. It wasn't that clear cut. I think even when I was in prep school, even when I was sort of having a really hard time, I think that's when I sort of realized that I had to have something creative. I started writing screenplays and I started writing stories, and so I think it started there. But I think really when I decided to go back to Japan, I think that's when I really. Like I said, broke out of this shell and was able to sort of start expressing myself. Right. I do remember, sorry to drag this question on,
go ahead.
But I do remember as a kid when I was, being very quiet. One of the things that I loved to do was to draw. So I would draw at recess or after lunch or whatever. I started drawing things, and I think usually it would be things that I was inspired by. I grew up in the late '80s, early '90s, so things like drawing oneself as Michael Jackson. This happened in the first grade, I think. I was just inspired by the things that I was listening to, the things that I saw. Michael Jackson was huge in Japan at the time. Another thing that I loved to draw was like graphics, logos. Ghostbusters, for instance, was very in. I would usually copy things, but I would also draw, some landscapes and, things with me in it. Usually it did revolve around myself, not always, but. So I had these drawing episodes, and later on in college I actually took that to another level. I started drawing and doing a little bit more art. I haven't really continued that, but I think filmmaking and I was also heavily involved in music. Those are all extensions of that.
Right. Well, you're going to have to draw something for me before you leave.
Oh, okay, all right.
For people in my production.
Okay.
So that when you make it big, I'll be like, he was on my show. And he drew something for me. And how much does it go on eBay? I just get it's because underneath this mild-mannered old soul persona that you have, which a lot of people really try hard to be that. Yeah. But you just naturally are this old soul, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to imagine you being this rebel, but underneath you there is a rebel. I mean. Moving, quitting the school, going after your dreams, moving to Hawaii. There's all these little moments that it's like a video game. Like your game is charging, and then you put the button thruster all the way through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's how it works for me. Usually it's usually it's pressure. and oftentimes it's negative, it's stress and so it builds up and builds up and builds up, and finally I'm like, the hell with it, I'm just going to do it, or I'm going to do something really different, or I'm going to go down and write something, or it's usually like that. I think maybe because oftentimes I'm too scared to do stuff every day. Maybe I'm unsure of my own thoughts. Maybe I'm just okay with the status quo for a certain amount of time. But then that doesn't satisfy me.
Well, I think it's of artists and creative people to be intimidated by themselves. I think we look at what our potential is, and something holds us back. There's always this like, am I good enough to do that? Or who am I to put that out into the world? Or people are going to laugh at me. But the moment you just can't hold it, like it's like a really big burp.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The moment you can't hold it back, you're like, oh my God, right?
It's like builds up, it's like this bubble, and then suddenly you burst, and you have to just everything pours out.
Yeah. And I think for people watching and or listening, this happens everywhere. Like if you're a gymnast, if you're a runner, if you're a musician, there's this. You can do other people's stuff for only so long before you're like, I need to create something.
Yeah.
But also the poetry and writing. But haikus are just they're just a gateway drug to other things. So just be careful with that one. Right. Because I've seen people just go to matches on those things. I'm like, stop it. Be crackheads before you know it. So yes, people, for those of you listening, I've proven that haikus are a gateway drug. But so keep that in mind. Don't do haikus. What is the first thing that you remember creating that came out of your own?
It probably has to be that drawing that I was talking about myself as Michael Jackson. It came. I think it was during the time when Michael Jackson. I know who's. I mean, it sounds. Sorry, it sounds like Michael Jackson. It's everybody's hero. At least in my generation, but it's particularly important for me because I think one. I probably didn't see myself. I probably was quickly realizing that I'm not Japanese. And this is, as a 5-6-year-old. And so I saw myself as I think, my ego was probably talking and I wanted to get this attention. But the right kind of attention. The attention I was getting when I was a kid was, oh my God, look at that white kid. And in most cases I was with my brother, so it's, oh, look at those white twins.
And this is in Japan.
This is in Japan. This is in Kyoto, Japan. And Kyoto, back in the late 80s, early 90s, was a pretty, it's not the Kyoto that people know now, which is this huge cosmopolitan, tourist-centric city. Back in the day, it was pretty tourist-centric, but mostly domestic. There were definitely overseas visitors, but for the most part, it was a very insular city, which meant that, a white guy, like namely my father, walking around town, he's 6'3",
wow.
is a big guy, walking around town would attract a lot of attention. Well, similarly, I would be, walking around with my brother, and not only are we twins, we're foreign looking, so we got all this attention. It was very negative. We didn't want it. We just wanted to sort of hide behind our parents. We didn't want to. Public spaces were intimidating. We didn't want it. And so, even going on the train or a bus, where you get on and people, you feel people's gazes on you. It was a very bad thing. So I think I wanted this sort of the right kind of attention where people would appreciate for my talents.
I'm wondering, because Michael Jackson of that time was the Michael Jackson that was morphing into who he became.
Absolutely.
I know this is going to sound this is my psychologist side coming out. Was there something to that? The morphine of, like, you wanted to transform into something more acceptable?
Maybe. It could be. I think also it was not just his stardom, but the way he was so confident. I know there's some identity stuff that was happening with Michael at the time, in the way that his skin color was changing. It's those kinds of things. Perhaps I don't know if I was that sophisticated as a 6-year-old to really pick up on that. I think for me it was being attracted to somebody who was very confident, somebody who I wasn't, and who could perform and be loved for what he did. I think that's more of what I was really finding in him, and so I would draw, this figure of me wearing, the black and gold jacket. The famous one. I would draw that, but it would be basically Michael Jackson, but I would tell my teacher, my first grade teacher, that's actually me.
I had that jacket.
You did?
Yes.
That's amazing. I wish I had that jacket. I think if I had that jacket, it would have been all over. I had some dexterity in the way that I could dance in my body movements, so I could actually replicate. I don't know how well, but I'm pretty sure it was okay. His moves, the moonwalk, and the way that he could do the pop and lock kind of dancing, I could replicate that as a 6-year-old, as a 7-year-old. So in a way, I was sort of reliving that, and I think, I had just, I think I'd found myself in a way, even though I was still lost. I still felt I wasn't Japanese, or that I didn't fit in. In a way, I was like, well, this is who I am. I don't know what to call this. Is this just a Michael wannabe or whatever? But I at that particular moment in my life, I found myself.
And of course, Michael Jackson. I think a lot of us. I found, because I was in high school. I was in junior high, going to high school when he came out as an adult, and to me, it was just the fashion sense. He was so courageous,
and charismatic,
and as a young, confused gay man, gay boy, it gave me the permission to express myself through clothing. Because I'm looking like Michael Jackson, so I'm not being gay. I'm being Michael Jackson, and it was acceptable.
But it's interesting because he treads that line too of femininity and masculinity, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know how sophisticated I was as a 6-year-old. I mean, maybe you don't have to be sophisticated. I don't know how well I was understanding everything, but I do feel like, the fact that he treads that fine line, is he and racially, became more ambiguous at the way that he looked and all that. Perhaps all that fed into that. But he was able to be him. He was nobody at the end of the day. Tabloids made fun of him, all that. But his fans were his fans. They loved him for who he was. They didn't care if he, had a different nose than 10 years prior to that. He was loved for what he did, and I think that's where I
and those are the figures, I think, in pop culture history, and we've had many of those in my 47 years. As they change, it gives us the permission to change. And yes, people listening or watching are going to be like, well, we should think about that historical figures. Yeah, but George Washington never really changed his look. And Abraham Lincoln, come on, everybody has a top hat.
And a beard.
The beards are coming back. So they come around. So historical figures are Napoleon. Who really wants a Napoleon complex? Those are the people that you kick out of the bars. But you take a Michael Jackson, you take a Madonna, you take a Cyndi Lauper, a Cher, you go even further, and you see them morphing, and these are the people that are successful, and you're like, I don't care how old you are, you're watching somebody and you're just captivated by their energy, and if you're already an introvert kid, like I was also, it's like, Sonny and Cher
Absolutely.
are wearing bell bottoms. I can wear bell bottoms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe now with the current climate, it's different. But if Michael grabs his crotch, I could do the same.
Why not? And to this date, I still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't tell me I can't do it. 'Cause
Yeah.
Michael Jackson did it for a long time and yell. It's kind of awkward when you're on the bus or on the train,
Right.
But people move out of the way. So yeehaw!
Yeah.
And okay, so let's forward you a little bit.
Okay.
Now I am gonna say before we move too fast, I did think that you were Latino when I first met you.
I remember you said even at when we attended the CalArts showcase at Red Cat downtown. When I was saying goodbye to you, I remember this very vividly. I said I was like, "Hey, I'm about to leave," and the first thing that came out of your mouth was, "Oh no, you were leaving." Excuse me, you were leaving, and you were wanting to say goodbye to me. And the first thing that you said was "Vámonos" or something, or I forget. Maybe it was something. Yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
And you said something else in Spanish that I didn't understand. But I was like, oh, I said something like, I wish I could speak that. And you were absolutely confused.
Well, because Masa Fox, I'm like, that is such a Latin name.
Yeah. Well, So Fox, like Vicente Fox.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of Jewish, I think it's a Jewish name, or it can be a Jewish name, but anyway, and Masa being the corn dough that is.
And I really
staple.
honestly thought that Masa was short for something else.
Something else, yeah.
Like Maximo or Maximiliano.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, Maximiliano Fox. That totally. I created this whole thing because I thought, well, maybe. Because I looked at you and I'm like, he doesn't look Mexican.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe he's like Peruvian.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, maybe he's because I have a lot of friends from Peru.
Okay.
I'm like, maybe he's Peruvian, Chilean. I'm like, somewhere in that area.
In New York, I got Italian, Persian, Turkish. I lived in a place called Prospect Heights in New York. In Brooklyn, there are a lot of Spanish-speaking people, like Dominicans. And I went to a Dominican supermarket, and people assumed that I could speak Spanish. So I have gotten that before.
Yeah. So in my world, you were from Peru, and I already had this whole story made up for you.
Right.
And then I'm like, I think I do remember because I think we were in the car, and I'm like, he doesn't speak Spanish.
No.
I was like, I'm confused.
Yeah.
And I think I went back and asked Michael, I'm like, where is he from? And that's when he was like, well, it's kind of confusing. And then that's when my journey of getting you on my show came on.
Interesting.
I was like...
Wait, it started way back then?
Oh, I've been after you for a
What?
while. Yeah. But I think I asked you once and you were kind of like, I'll get back to you.
Okay.
And it was towards the end.
End of it. Oh, I see.
And I said, okay, well, I'll come back.
Okay.
And then I saw we'll talk about this in just a second.
Right.
Then I saw your post for Between Tides. And I was like, well, what filmmaker doesn't like attention?
It's true. This is true. This is true. But I have to say one thing before we talk about the film. Maybe I'm an unusual artist. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I can't speak for all artists, all filmmakers. But I have a side of me that's really private. And and I think it stems from the fact that I was an introvert, that there were things that I felt fearful of sharing. There is still an element in me where, making films is a very public thing, but there's an element in me where I'm like, well, I'm just kind of doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to share it.
No, and let me tell you, I've had a lot of, a couple dozen of filmmakers on my show. It's not a unique trait. I mean, short of offering some virgin to the film gods for sacrifice, it is really hard to get filmmakers to come and talk. First, because the projects, even though they're already filmed on display somewhere, they don't want to talk about it. I'm like, people already saw it. Like, we're not going to steal your idea. Shut up. Like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
But when I tell them that the show is not so much about the project, but about the journey towards the project, then I get a turnaround. Because I think it's more, we see your end project. We go to the theater, we see the film. We don't know how you got to that point. We don't know what you're going to do afterwards. But I think a lot of the passion behind the project is what you don't get to share a lot of times. So when I tell my guests, like, no, we'll talk about your project a little bit, but I really want to know how you got there. What was your motivation? And then they're on. And then some of them I bribe with tacos. Okay. That's always a good thing.
That would work for me too.
Tacos is always a
absolutely,
good thing. But I haven't had lunch, so we can go to tacos after this.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, so people are more interested in, filmmakers are a lot more interested in sharing, their journey towards their project than the project itself.
Right.
So you're on the right track.
All right.
Yes, you'll be a snob filmmaker before you know it.
Yeah, right.
You're welcome.
I'll fit the bill. Yeah.
For those of you that keep hearing us say Call Arts, it's California
Institute of the Arts
up in Valencia. Very great school. I haven't been there, but I've worked a lot of projects there. So if you are listening, watching, if you're an actor and you see an audition post for them, do it. These guys are so professional
and creative.
And the space that they give you, and I don't mean actual, but the creative space that they give you is so huge that you can do anything. I mean, I was doing green screen. I'd never done green screen until then. Fake blood. And then one of my favorite scenes to do was the sherbet scene, because I got to eat sherbet.
Oh, nice.
Through like half a day, so that was pretty awesome. But if you're listening to this, I just want to say the guys at CalArts are awesome to work with. So if you are a actor in LA, it's a little far to drive.
It is.
But do it, go work with them, and you will find a very professional atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it. Let's talk about
Between
Tights. Yes.
Okay. So this film happened, it's 8 years in the making. It's taken 8 long years.
Serious?
Yeah. It started in March of 2010. This is when I reluctantly left Hawaii, went back to Japan. My dad was already doing research on the islands. He was doing research on a Japanese poet who had gone down to the islands in the 19th century, who was writing about these people that lived there. And it turns out the Bonin Ogasawara Islands, so the Bonin Islands is the name in the West, Ogasawara Islands in Japanese, is an island that was, a set of islands that first got inhabited in 1830 by Hawaiians and Western settlers initially. They formed a community. They lived there on their own for almost 40 years. They were doing a lot of trading, with whaling vessels and different kinds of merchandise they were trading. But anyway, the father of the island was this American man called Nathaniel Savory, and they formed a community. And then in the late 19th century, well, specifically in the 1870s, they got colonized by the Japanese. So it was, I think, one of the first instances of a white or partially white settlement that got colonized by a non-white nation.
Okay.
Their descendants, so the Japanese colonized it. There were a lot of intermarriages between Japanese and these Western settlers. So their descendants are still there. It was very complicated in terms of the culture because there were English-speaking people, but the schools were all in Japanese after they got colonized, and towards the middle of the 20th century, towards in the 1940s, late 30s, early 40s, Japan was involved in World War II, and so America, the U.S. was the enemy. Schools were banned from teaching English, so it had a lot of impact on this community. And so the pre-war generation of the Bonin Islanders, that's what they call themselves, the Bonin Islanders, really were shunned from speaking English, but they managed to still continue their sort of cultural heritage. In the post-war period, specifically in 1946, they got occupied by the U.S. Navy. And so the islands became basically an occupied territory. During the war, the islanders and other Japanese civilians were kicked out of the island because it was just too dangerous. There were a lot of American Navy pilots that were bombing the island. And this island is actually located not too far from Iwo Jima, where the famous battle is. So there was a lot of fighting, and so this became a Japanese military stronghold during the war. They had to kick all these civilians out, and the Bonin Islanders were displaced. They moved to the mainland. Of course, they didn't look Japanese, so they were discriminated against. And then at the end of the war, when Japan lost, the commanders of both nations signed a treaty, an agreement that allowed the islands to be occupied, and specifically by the U.S. Navy. Initially, the Navy didn't want to have any civilians living there, but the Bonin Islanders petitioned in Yokohama, and was like, "Hey, we're experiencing discrimination every day. We need our home back." And so they allowed just the Bonin Islanders and their spouses, their families. So their spouses could include Japanese people. And obviously their children are mixed race, and they themselves are mixed race. So they were able to go back under these conditions. The Japanese, ethnic Japanese people who didn't have ties to the Bonin Islanders, they were left on the mainland. They couldn't go back to the island. So there's this 130 people that went back in 1952. 1952? I'm getting the years. I think they were okay, but in the immediate post-war period,
you have to go watch the movie.
They went back to the island. So that is the community that settled on the islands after the war, and the community that raised their kids. They had obviously children born on the island. That is the community that I was interested in, mainly because they all grew up under the U.S. Navy naval occupation, and so the Navy really controlled everything. They used the dollar. They didn't use the yen. They taught kids English in school, not Japanese. So they grew up as if they were part of the United States, even though technically they weren't. 23 years under the U.S. naval occupation, and suddenly in 1968, the U.S. kind of loses their sort of ability to keep the island, and so it goes back to Japan. And so a lot of these kids who were born during that era they didn't have any choice, but they either had to get out of the island, or they had to stay and endure this sort of change, this drastic change. The dollar wasn't used anymore; it was the yen. Japanese schools were set up, no English schools on the island.
Wow.
Things like that. So some people were 8 years old, other people were 18. And depended on your age, how well you took the transition. So there are these people, 5 people to be exact. I interviewed some more people, but 5 main people that I interviewed who experienced this, who shared their life stories. It's a lot of it's about being multicultural and growing up under these very special circumstances, and being isolated because these kids weren't really allowed to go anywhere. They were stateless citizens. They didn't technically own they didn't own any sort of passport to get them anywhere. And they had this one travel document that they used, but it was really not it was a very flimsy thing. It was considered not very legitimate. So they were holed up on this island, and under these very special circumstances, and then had to endure this tumultuous change in 1968. A lot of them ended up settling down in the United States, but that also had its challenges. Some of them stayed on the island and had to basically watch their island get transformed.
Right.
And so there's varying degrees of trauma.
Yeah, don't tell the whole movie.
Yeah, I know.
We won't be. Now, this episode will air after your presentation.
The screening?
Yeah.
Okay.
But for those of you, we'll make a small clip in a minute. For those of you that are listening, you'll be like, did I miss it? No, because you probably saw the clip up that he was going to air it. But because we're filming this on the 13th, and your viewing is
the 15th.
The 15th, which is a Thursday.
Yep, at 4 p.m.
So if you're listening, you're like, oh my God, no, you didn't miss it, because we're going to make a special commercial to post on Facebook. So that
awesome.
We'll do that before we end.
All right.
After it airs at the screening, where does it go?
That is still up in the air. We are looking to have that's somewhat of a film festival run. So there's a chance I may be screening. I want to screen it in LA. LA is a really hard place to do that. I've tried already, but I didn't have any luck doing that so far. There could be screenings up in the Bay Area. There could be screenings up in like states like Oregon and Washington. We don't know yet, but I will. We have a website, and I'll post all the screenings.
And before we end, we'll give out all the information.
Absolutely.
We're a little over time.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, because it's all very interesting, and I'm like lost in your conversation.
Yeah.
You have such a storyteller way of saying things.
Oh, thanks.
Which is really cool. So I'm kind of like, really?
Yeah.
Really, Fox?
Yeah. I'm glad.
And for those of you who are listening to this, wait till the video comes out and the picture. Your color eyes is very unique.
It is, yeah. It's actually, I say it, on my license it says hazel, but really it's kind of, that's not really an accurate description.
Yeah.
It's very brown, but it's also, there's some green.
Green in it, yeah. So from a total gay point of view, I'm just here looking at his eyes going, yes, Fox, what else? Tell me the alphabet again in Japanese. So calm down, people. This has just been so unprofessional. Okay, so we're gotten to the point in my show where my guest shares some words of wisdom with my listeners.
All right.
Masa Fox, what words of wisdom do you have?
I'm not a good person to give you good sound bites, but here's what I would say. I would say, myself included, there are a lot of people who, take time finding out things about themselves, about other people. Patience is a virtue has always been kind of my mantra. I've really learned how to just not rush into anything, to really take time. And I know in this fast-paced world with, social media and posts going up every second or whatever, it's hard to do that. But I've really learned how to take time and be patient and be observant and know before you act, or at least kind of have this sort of firm idea of what you want to do or what you think about certain things. I think it's very difficult to do that now, but that's what I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It seems to me from listening to your story that 6-year-old Masa was the one that started to discover the world.
Yeah.
Like he really understood that there was more beyond.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and tell him something, what would you say to him?
I would say to him that it's okay that you're lost. It's okay that you're trying to find yourself. It's okay that you don't fit in. People will accept you, and if they don't, that's not your problem. I think that's what I would say, because I think I went through many years of feeling as though what I was doing was wrong, or it was something insufficient about what I was doing.
Any interest in doing a story about that, about feeling lost in the world?
Sure. In this format, or are you talking about...
Yeah, like, I don't know, making a film.
Making a film?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that I also am a twin, and my twin went through similar things but different things, I think that's all interested in. I'm interested in. Absolutely. Feeling lost is something that I've felt for such a long time, not just as a kid, but as an adult as well.
And it's such a universal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all, I mean, Lord knows that part of this show is connecting with people so that I can find my way.
Yeah.
Because there are certain people that I talk to that I'm like, yes, I totally feel that.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who are like, you're on your own on this one, but I have no clue what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
But movies are such a beautiful way to look at them and go, yes,
yeah, and
I get it.
I think that's part of the reason why I'm involved in movie making is because of that. Because I felt lost and also like you kind of there's like moody, nostalgic kind of movies, narrative movies that kind of put you in that state. But there's like something calming about it. It's like, oh, somebody else is actually doing this, and this is how I feel exactly. There's comfort in that.
Because I was there's a movie called It's My Party, which is an 80s movie about AIDS in the 80s and how people who were diagnosed and were told they were going to die, they would commit suicide by overdosing, so the insurance would pay the money to their families. And very impressive people. Eric Roberts is in it, Olivia Newton-John, Margaret Cho. It's a very impressive cast. I was able to see that movie with my mom in Spanish when I was diagnosed, and it definitely impacted us. Well, it brought us together because she didn't understand AIDS, and it definitely made a bond. So that's always been one of my favorite movies ever. I don't watch it because it makes me bawl to the end. Yeah. But I think we all look for people filmmakers. We want them to make our story, right?
Absolutely.
Like, get in my head,
Absolutely,
get in my spirit, get in my soul, and make that movie. In the memoir of Masa Fox, when it gets written, what would be the first sentence?
Oh gosh, these are really challenging questions.
This is not an easy show.
No,
Mr.
it's not.
Fox.
It's not. What would be the first sentence? Or
what would be the last sentence?
God, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, I'll just make something up. Okay. Let me start with the first. I think first sentence I would feel more comfortable in.
Okay.
I think it would be something like. And on the sheet of paper, he. Oh gosh, I wish I was like writing this because I think I would be better.
But say that part again.
And on the sheet of paper, he doodled. He put lines, and on the sheet of paper, he doodled. I think that's
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can go so many directions with that. People are like, what did he doodle? Like, what did he do?
Yeah.
Did that make like a change in his life? Was that like?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it is.
Because I can picture the beginning shot
Yeah.
of this kid just starting to draw something.
Yeah.
And then he throws it away.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, what was he going to draw? And we don't find out till the end of the movie.
Yeah, right.
That he finishes it.
Yeah.
We're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what I would have drawn.
Yeah.
Obviously. All right. So if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
They could find me on my website at masafox.com. My movie is betweentidesmovie.com, so I'm also listed there. There's an email address on my personal website, so you can contact me there. I'm on Instagram. It's Masa Que Pasa. Again, I don't speak Spanish, but it is what it is. So I'm not on Twitter. It is something that I'm considering starting up. There were certain aspects of it, namely privacy aspects of it, that I didn't fully condone. So I that's why I'm not on there. But I am thinking about going on there. I have a Facebook account. You can always friend me there.
Yeah, so when this airs, as usual, you'll find links and connections to my guests, so you can find them. Look for that. Sir, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's for somebody that doesn't want to put himself out there. This was a really cool episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
For everybody watching, thank you to Mr. Moyers for all this help. Thank you, sir. I want to invite all of you out to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com. You can find everything on the network. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. We can find more information on my guest, on me, what we're doing. For now, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together.
This is how I put it together.
This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.